The buyers, this is your chance. This is your chance to buy in the Arlington condo market.
Yo! How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt. That is Shawn. Welcome to our show. Shawn, how's it going today?
I'm doing all right, man. You know what's weird?
What's weird?
Watching hockey playoffs in August.
That is weird.
Like right before a season's supposed to start, they're doing hockey playoffs, and they're all in Canada. And I don't know, man. It's hard to get into, right?
They're in the bubble. It is hard to get into.
It's so weird because there's no fans in the stadium. They're pushing in the audio, right? Which is cool. You know, sometimes I'm like, oh, well, there's no crowd. You know?
I've caught a few clips, and it does look pretty good. Like baseball, you know, they have the virtual fans. You expect to see a lot of fans. Hockey, it's more cut in, and I think it looks a little more natural.
I like it. They covered the seats in the front couple sections, and then they put TV, like huge TV screens around it. I think it looks pretty good. I mean, what else? What other way are you going to do it? A little bit strange. You know?
It's strange, but I'm not complaining about hockey in August.
Oh, I love hockey.
So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about three main topics. The first topic that we're going to talk about is the buyer market that is upcoming. The second topic, houses with pools. And then the third topic is temporary housing, living in temporary housing. So Shawn, let's start with the upcoming buyer market, because in Arlington, Virginia, and in many sub-markets, now sub-markets is going to be the name of the game here, because it's not just a buyer's market. It's not just a seller's market. You know, I see these reports from NAR, and it's like, it's a good time to buy a house. It's like, really? Like, in what market? Like, you gotta have sub-markets, right? You gotta, narrow it down. So the upcoming buyer market, we've talked about at length you can't call it an exodus, but the increased interest in real estate outside of downtown cities. People wanting to move from New York City to Connecticut, or Washington, D.C. to Loudoun County. So, Shawn, this is going to cause more of supply for these downtown city urban areas. So what type of effects are you going to see that for buyers that still have interest in these downtown areas?
It's going to be a great time to buy. I'm telling you right now that I'm seeing it locally. We've talked about this before. You know, you can look at a market and say, wow, the market's really hot. It's doing great. You could look at, New York, where we're talking about New York, Toronto, and let's just say the Arlington market, right? By looking at it at stats in a general kind of standpoint, it looks like a really healthy market. But then if you dig into the sub-markets, you're going to probably see that most of the places that are for sale are condos, or inner city, city condos that are most of the supply. And where most of the demand is the single family market. So what I think is happening is this sub-market is now becoming a buyer's opportunity. And this is going to be a great time to buy. If you look right now in the Arlington market, it looks like a healthy market. But as we talked about last week, the condo market has a ton of options for you. And I think it's going to get slightly worse. I think last week we talked, there were 100 available condos on the market. I looked a couple days later, there were 110. So these keep increasing and the buyers aren't there. Why aren't the buyers there? Couple reasons, right? It's summer, it's August. August is usually dead slow. But will the buyers come back and gobble all these up? Probably not. I think it's going to be months. We have months of supply right now. So I think the buyer opportunity is going to be there, and I think it's going to be there for at least, I'm talking months, maybe a year, before all of this stuff kind of pans out. We need a solution to the pandemic. Once that hits, then I think things will come back. But another question, like a question for you would be, what's going to happen when all of these people say they are moving out of Toronto or New York, or these cities, and they're moving out to the suburbs? And then after about 6 months, they realized, wow, it was so much more convenient in the city. I had everything. I could walk to everything. Now I got to get in my car. I don't have a grocery store within
Right.
5 miles. So yes, it's always greener on the other side.
Right.
So be careful of that. Don't buy on panicking. Just chill out.
Well, I think you see the overcorrection a little bit, right? Whenever something extreme like this happens, you're going to see that overcorrection. But going off of what you said earlier in terms of buyers and the condo slowdown, for the sellers on the other side of that, they have their price. They've expected to get that price because the comps show that price or higher. So if you're selling, how long do you expect the seller to go with their list price before they realize, hey, the market has changed, the buyers aren't there, we need to lower our price?
Yeah, in the past, we would always say, hey, if you're not sold within 30 days, there's something wrong. You got to start pulling this down a little bit. And then as the market got harder and harder, like stronger and stronger as a seller's market, we would say, well, if you're not gone in 2 weeks, then you got to lower that price. Now, I think all of that's changed. And I was thinking the other day, like, what if, like, in the shower, I always think in the shower, I was thinking, what if I just took a listing and we just priced it super low? I wonder how long it would take to sell, how high it would sell to kind of create the new market, right? Because we really don't know where the ceiling is or where the floor is right now. And so I've seen so many instances where I thought a big price drop would sell a condo, and it's still sitting there. And it's not my listing, but whatever, right? It's still sitting there. So what is the answer to that? There's no buyer for that. So it doesn't matter where you're pricing this. How low do you have to go to actually get a buyer in there?
Maybe you go low. Maybe you have to wait
That's right.
3-4 months for a specific buyer at a specific price point. I'll give you one example. 1-bedroom condo in Pentagon City. When I listed this condo last month, there were no 1-bedrooms on the market. There are now a total of 7 properties that are on the market, 6 1-bedrooms. So it's my listing and then 5 other 1-bedrooms in that same building. And we actually did get an offer. They came in low, as they should, but this is a buyer that has the upper hand. They can go to every single one of these condos, throw out their price, and see who's willing to make a deal. When you have 5 or 6 other comparable 1-bedrooms, it makes for a very difficult time to sell your condo. Now, we are priced $20,000 lower than some of these other condos,
But it's still there.
but it's still there. And it's not like we're saying, it's not like we're being unreasonable. We're trying to meet in the middle, and we've had one offer. It's been well below the list price, and we've been on the market for about a month. And this isn't a unique condo. This isn't a weird renovation or anything like that. It's pretty close to a boilerplate condo in Pentagon City. So that to me tells me that the buyer market has cooled off a little bit for condos.
Absolutely. We're seeing properties sit longer. You have to start thinking about pricing it lower. Don't go on the comps. We said this before. Don't go on the recent comps that have sold even a month ago. I've had similar experiences where we have a 1-bedroom. It's an amazing place, and it's all of the 1-bedrooms. It was funny. We were the first one to come on the market, priced accordingly, and then all these other ones popped up right around our price point, and they all sold. And ours is still sitting there, and ours is better. But now we've got days on the market. So if you're looking for an awesome Ballston 1-bedroom, there
But
it is.
how do you weigh time on market versus dropping the price? Because
That's the problem.
If you had a $4 million listing, you're not dropping the price every 30 days because the market, the right buyer is going to come along, and maybe once every 4 months or once every 90 days, you think about the price. But how are you telling your sellers, we need to be patient or we need to drop the price?
Well, yeah, and that's just it. It depends on the patience of the seller. How quickly do we need to unload this thing? And there's different situations for everybody. Unfortunately, now we have to be much more patient than we were. We're not used to this in this market. We're used to things selling in a weekend, 2 weeks, 30 days max. Now we're saying, all right, 30 days looks pretty good. 2 weeks would be amazing if we get something on the first week. We're not seeing those multiple contracts. Here and there we are, but we were spoiled for a good year and a half where we'd put it up and multiple contracts would roll in. It was awesome, but awesome in one sense, bad in another sense. Buyers were having a really difficult time. So buyers, this is your chance. This is your chance to buy in the Arlington condo market.
Now, as a real estate agent, it's almost like you have to do marketing and advise your clients, and you can't just throw it on. No,
really?
That's too easy.
Oh, yeah. You have
so
to advise.
Our next topic is houses with pools. Now, in Arlington, there's not that many houses with pools. Actually, my parents' neighbor just put in a pool. Looks sick. They got like a little unicorn, those unicorn ads you see on Facebook. So they have a deck, house, deck, pool, and they have a dog and a little bit of a yard. But in Arlington, lot sizes are usually a little bit on the smaller end compared to Fairfax and obviously Loudoun counties. So the question becomes, do you want a pool or do you want a yard? But with COVID, we've seen an influx of buyer demand people that want a pool, and usually the issue is, I don't want the maintenance, I don't want this. Well, now all the pools are closed.
That's
right. And so you're the most popular pool in the neighborhood. You're not inviting the neighborhood over, but having that pool has now become an amenity. So Shawn, what are your thoughts moving forward on increased demand for houses with pools?
I'm in it. I love it.
Invite me over.
Yeah, I want a pool. I've always wanted.
If you get one.
As a real estate agent, I think in general, pools are probably a negative because you're looking for a more narrowed buyer. Most people don't want them. But for me, man, I want a pool. And here's the situation. I'm buying a new house, and my yard's not big enough. But I'm like, well, maybe I could just squeeze a little pool in here. There's a lot of options out there. You can do little pools, you can do mini pools, and you can do pools that have automatic decks that just slide right over, right? So the worst thing about a pool is the winter. It's going to look ugly, right? So you have an ugly green cover,
okay, gotcha.
Or you have an empty pit with nasty water in it. But there are options. There's one option that it's more of a European thing, but the floor of the pool actually raises out of the water and is a deck.
That is so cool.
It's amazing. And then the other option would be just putting it on wheels and pulling it over. So then you have a deck on top of your pool.
What's the
amazing?
What's the price on something like that?
Yeah, that's where we're talking. So a small pool. I've looked at different options. I've never gotten an estimate, but I'm thinking, a small pool in the backyard, probably on the low side, no frills, nothing. You're probably at about $45,000, right? But if you could spend $250,000,
right.
It just depends on what you want and what size you want. But I would say on average, you're probably talking in high, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s.
What about one of those narrow, LA pools? Could you squeeze that in your backyard?
I definitely could.
Like a rectangle?
I could. It's not that small. I could do something. I would definitely get an architect over to be like, all right, let's build a deck here, and
Yeah.
It's a dream. I've dreamed about this before, but then I looked at pictures of empty pools in the winter, and I was like, no, I don't want that.
Get the old roller deck or whatever.
Let's get the roller deck.
When I was growing up, I'd visit my parents, my aunt's house in Syracuse, in upstate New York, and they had a pool. Epic pool, epic yard, 13,000 square foot lot. It was probably more than that, like half an acre. It was huge. And then I got curious because I, Google Maps, satellite view, and I did satellite view. So many people in upstate New York have pools. Mm-hmm. Do you know this?
No.
If you do satellite view in upstate New York, lots of people have pools. And I think 3 or 4 of my aunts / uncles have pools. Why does everyone in upstate New York have a pool? It's
cold
winter there, like 9 months out of the year.
That's funny.
But it's very popular there. You do satellite view in Florida. Everyone's got a pool.
And that's the thing is in Florida you need it because it's so hot. You need to cool off, right?
I guess it has to do with lot sizes and price. You don't want to have an above ground pool. You don't want to have like a nubby we call it a West Virginia pool, right? You don't want the above ground. You want the concrete. You want the good stuff.
You want the or at least at minimum in deck, right? So it's kind of like there's a deck around it. You can't really see the yard and the round thing. Yeah, I love pools. I think what people are siding towards now is because of COVID, it's changed the way we believe, the way that we think, and the way that we can react to our outside world, right? We can't go to a pool, so why not have the whole oasis in your yard? And that's what I was thinking, honestly. And I'm thinking, all right, well, if I can save some money and I can build something where, I could work on my patio right by my pool. You guys call me, I'll be by my pool. It's amazing.
I think if you have the space and, the two other considerations, millennials, they love dogs.
Yep.
And they are starting to have babies. Now, I don't know which is the priority right now. Some millennials really love their dogs. But I think you eliminate yard space for any sort of dogs, and then safety with young toddlers is obviously
that's the
paramount.
Biggest, yeah, that's the biggest thing.
But I think people are starting to realize that working from home, all right, let's spruce things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's throw a silly pool out there.
Hey, we can drink a beer by the pool while we work.
So you were talking about your new house that you're building. You're not in it right now. Where are you staying right now?
Temporary housing, my friends.
Temporary housing. And by the sign of that sigh, you can't wait to get to that new house.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple different things that go along with this. I'm excited to just get into the new house. I've been watching it for a while, watching the progression, which is awesome. I love to see before and afters. We're going to show you before and afters. It's amazing transition. But living in temporary housing, it's a good thing and it's a really bad thing, right? The good thing is it allows you to get from one house to the other. You can rent for a month, 2 months, whatever. We've been in there now a little over a month. We're going to be in there for a little over one more month. The downside, man. All right, so we always say when you buy a condo, do not buy wood construction. And this is exactly why you do not buy wood construction, because the place I'm in, the temporary housing that I'm in, is completely wood construction. And I can hear everything. Like, you hear that?
Shuffling.
You did not hear this. I'm telling you, if you were sitting in my condo right now and you went like this, it was like dong dong.
Are you on the first floor?
We're on the second floor. We have a herd of elephants above us, literally. And the thing is, I was like, what is going on up there? Who possibly can make this much noise, right?
Moving furniture at 4 a.m.
It was like 11 o'clock. All of a sudden, the activity would start. It was like boom, boom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is going on? So I stalked a little bit. I walked up there just past the door because I had to hear who in their right mind can make this much noise. And it was young little kids. There's like 4 kids, a mom. I don't know who else is up there, but there's a lot of people in there. And you got to think about the kids jumping around. I have a daughter. She's 5. She jumps around, and every time she jumps down, I'm like, don't jump. There's people underneath us. You got to be, But most people don't care or are unaware of the noise that they're making, and it reverberates through that place like you would not believe.
So, wood construction, not so good. But temporary housing, who do you think is living in temporary housing? Is it people that are definitely buying and then selling and then buying? Is it someone going through a divorce? Is it someone, getting a new job? Is it someone between leases? Because temporary housing is huge right now. I think what we are seeing is that some maybe renters are moving back to their parents' house. Imagine if your lease expires, in June or something, and you have orders from your office that you're going to be working from home for the rest of the year. Why would you spend $2,300 to have an apartment in DC? It doesn't make sense. What makes sense is hanging out with your folks and saving on rent and just hanging out for the next 6 months. You're going to save, $12,000 in rent and just lie low. So for the people living at temporary housing, have you met your neighbors? Do you have an idea of who they are?
Yeah, and you can rent long term in this. So the neighbors right to the left, young couple, not married, living together. They've been there for over a year, so they're not really short term. They're renters, right? But this place allows you to do month to month. I've definitely seen some divorcees.
Don't they have a nickname for that place?
Yeah, they do. I don't even know the nickname, but I know that there's What is it? Do you know?
I mean, it's like Divorce Central, Arlington or something.
Yeah. So there's that. There's definitely the people that are building the house. I've talked to a few, and then there's the military people, right? So I have one client that we just sold their house last week. They wanted to hit the right time of the market, so they sold their house at the spring market. They closed, and now they are in temporary housing until their military orders come to fruition. So the couple is they're moving at different times. Their orders were at different times. So the first one is going in a month, and the next one is going in 6 months. Luckily, they're going to the same spot. But that's the kind of person that's going to go into the temporary
And
housing.
so your situation is you were living in a house, you sold the house, the new house isn't ready yet, so you went house, temporary housing, apartment to house. So living in temporary housing, what has that made you appreciate? When you're there, you're like, oh my gosh, I did not realize this. I can't wait to have this or change this in my next place.
Just the freedom of no sound around you, right? The freedom of having a view and not the looking at a parking garage or something like that, or walking outside directly into your yard when you have a single family home, or outdoor space, having outdoor space.
Are you concerned about confined living, passing people in hallways, things like that?
I'm not. I personally am not. I take precautions. We all wear masks, but you think about, hey, I got to run to my car real quick. And most people in there, when they're running to their car, to be honest, they're not wearing a mask. They're just running back to their place. You definitely see the other side of things where people, are on the opposite side of the hall. They're like this, and just keeping their distance, and everybody's going to feel their own comfort level. But the company that owns it has sent out things like, hey, please wear masks in the hallways. So they're being diligent on keeping people remembering that, hey, we are still in a pandemic. We need to take precautions because we are in a family living. But for the most part, it's pretty good. I mean, it's okay. I think where this is really good for people is I didn't want to be stuck with holding 2 mortgages. And I could have done it, but did I want to lose that much money? No. So I wanted to sell my house and have the freedom to take my down payment and put it somewhere else without doing a bridge loan, because you never know what happens in markets, right? I didn't know. I sold my house right at the beginning of the pandemic. I didn't know if I was going to be able to sell it. So it was smart, I think, of me to do that. Hindsight, I probably didn't need to do that. But it afforded me to get the house that I'm in now at the price I wanted. Had I waited, it would have changed.
Well, I think you have that certainty,
Yeah,
and then you have flexibility.
Yeah.
Those are 2 really good things to have.
Exactly. And when I first moved and put my house on the market, I had no certainty. I didn't know where I was going, but I'm like, I'm going to find something. And I always had this one option in the back of my head, and that's actually the option that we went with. Had we gone the normal route and just bought a resale, I think we'd still be looking. There were a lot that just came up in Waverly Hills and Cherrydale that I would have bought. I would have probably been in competition. I didn't look at this last one that came on last week. Really nice spot on Taylor Street. But would have bought that one. But, you're in competition, and it's a tough market out there. So you got to be prepared. You have to prepare yourself for the market you're going into. Whether it's a downside buyer market for the condos or it's an upside market, seller's market for the single family market, you have to know your market and you have to know what to do to get the deal.
So when are you moving into the new spot?
We have a target date of September 7th. School starts September 8th.
She's going in school in person?
No, I think it's right now. It's all online. Arlington schools are buying each kid a laptop or an iPad so that they can communicate, which is cool, but totally stinks for kids, man. It's just an awful thing that we're in. But
so that's about a month away.
It's a month away. We're grinding, man. You got to go over and see it. It's pretty awesome.
Would love to
coming
see
along.
it. Yeah. So Shawn's definitely going to do a video upcoming of a property walkthrough of his new house. So if you ever wonder where a realtor lives, stay tuned because Shawn's going to show that. All right, well, that's it for me, for Shawn and myself. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Appreciate it.